Good morning. Thanks for joining us today. I can see that there's a number of people still checking in our waiting room. So what I'm going to do is maybe we'll wait another minute or so, and feel free in the chat section, maybe drop us a line of what company you're from and maybe what you're hoping to get out of today's workshop. That'd be really helpful. And keep in mind, we're talking into a complete vacuum right now, so it's hard to tell who's all there and who's not. Awesome. Eric from This Fish. Oh, good. I actually have something I'm sending to you probably in an hour. actually, when this is done. Roland from Bronix. Fantastic. Jacob, you'll have to talk to us after about what you guys are doing. Oh, hi, Natalie. Cool.
Oh, hi, Natalie. I remember Natalie.
Yeah. Awesome. Other one from SFU. Good. Okay, well, I think I'll probably kick it off now. We've got well over 100 people registered. Oh, hi, Connie as well. Hi, Sabrina. Cool. Thanks so much for joining us today. This is the first in a two-part series on digital marketing for startups. My name is Allison Berg, and I'm one of the mentors at SFU VentureLabs. And I get off lucky that I only have to do the introductions today, while Martin will be in the hot seat for the 2 hours. At this time, I would like to acknowledge that as part of SFU, the team at VentureLabs is grateful to work on the traditional territories of the Coast Salish peoples of the Musqueam, Squamish, and the Tsleil-Waututh nations. We are proud to be one of Canada's leading tech accelerators. Through mentoring and programming, we've helped hundreds of businesses scale up, and we're happy to connect with you and your leadership team afterwards about how we could help your business. Today's session will be about 2 hours. We'll take a 5-minute break halfway through because we know it's a long session. You can stretch, refill your coffee, whatever. And we anticipate there will be a good chunk of time at the end for questions. Well, while there is a public chat function, please use the Q&A function. You should be able to see it on the upper part of your screen. And we'll make sure we filter those questions through to get to Martin. The session is being recorded, and we'll share links with you afterwards. Martin has prepared a fantastic handout, and I encourage you all to download it either now or after the session. And we'll ask a number of polling questions along the way. I'd like to share a few other sessions coming up, part 2 of this series, and that's on July 8th. We are running an Intro to Public Relations for Startups on July 15th. We've got an ongoing Garibaldi Capital series coming up, and that's about 7 to 8 different workshops that we'll be running over the next few months, probably a little slower over summer. And we have an out-of-town angels session coming up. I am thrilled to introduce this workshop. I've been in a variety of roles in tech startups over the past 20 years. Back when I started in marketing, digital marketing wasn't even really a thing. It really referred to the advent of search engines. And obviously the growth has been just astronomical since, from SEO to marketing automation, social media, content strategies, pay-per-click, you name it. I do want to stress that digital marketing needs to be part of your overall marketing integrated marketing strategy. What is your core value prop for your customers? What's your go-to-market plan? What do customers care about? What problem are you solving for them? What distribution channels are most effective for your products? Where does PR, thought leadership, events, where do all those fit in? These all shape different aspects of your marketing plan. Today is about digital marketing, though, and our featured speaker is Martin Wong. He is the Chief Marketing Officer at Smart, which is a Vancouver-based IT and marketing company. He is probably one of the most savvy digital marketers and overall marketers that I've ever met. I've had the pleasure of working with him on a number of startups, and I've seen how much he's helped many companies prioritize their marketing and digital and technology needs. He's a firm believer in the adage of Peter Drucker: you can't manage what you can't measure. He's responsible for the P.A.C.E digital marketing framework, promote, analyze, convert, engage, which we're going to delve into now. I'm going to turn off my microphone and camera, and I'm going to turn the session over to Martin.
Thank you, Allison. And thank you for bringing up the slides. I wouldn't have figured out how to do it myself. Welcome, everyone. So this is a super condensed version of a one-day workshop that we used to do once a month before COVID-19 happened. So I've tried my best to condense it into 2 sessions of 2 hours each, but there is a lot of material to cover. So we've prepared a handout that you can either download from the Handouts tab of this webinar, or you can also go to this link. It's also available on our website. So there are 2 goals that we have for this workshop. So by the end, I want you to be able to pick out the relevant digital tactics, not everything, just the relevant one that would work best for you. And I want you to know the pros and cons, and also some useful tips and potential pitfalls of each tactic. So that you can basically walk away with a digital strategy. And before we get into it, I just want to get to know you a little bit because we usually do this in person, and we go around the room, learn a little bit about each other and what you're after, which we can't really do online. So the team at SFU VentureLabs has kindly helped set up some polls so that we can see what topics you're interested in the most. So my first question is, are you primarily a B2B, business to business, or business to consumer company? Let's see the answers. B2B is winning at the moment. B2C is catching up. Oh, this is exciting. It's almost like watching an election in real time. So someone has a question about the handout. Where do you get the handout? There should be a tab. And I will also, while we're waiting on the poll results, I will also go back to the link. So there's the handouts tab, and you can also get it from this link. Maybe Allison, if you can also grab the link and just paste that into the chat box. Okay, good. I think that's enough answers. So we are mostly B2B companies, about 57%. So that's good. So I just want you to know that the material we're covering today Works for both B2B with B2C. There is a slight twist for B2B, and throughout the whole workshop, I'm going to show you how you can customize by the tips for either B2B or B2C. So my second question for you is I want to know your role so I can know who I'm talking to and how the tips might be relevant to you. And I will also move on to the next one. So we move along. How familiar are you with digital marketing in general? Very, very familiar, only at a very high level, not familiar, or at only at the technical level. And lastly, have you ever worked with a digital agency? Yes, at a previous company. Yes, at your current company, or no? Good. So we've got a lot of marketers in the room. Very, very happy to see that. And a lot of CEOs and owners as well. So good. I will show you how we can use digital marketing to help scale up your organization, take things to the next level. And it looks like in terms of how familiar you are with digital marketing, about 1/3 is not familiar, 1/3 is at a high level, and then 1/3 at a technical level. So good. So thank you guys for your responses. We will adapt the material accordingly. So today, we're going to start off with an overview of the P.A.C.E digital marketing model, which stands for Promote, Analyze, Convert, Engage. We'll go over the basics, the high-level strategy, how you should pick out the tactics, and then we're going to get into some more implementation details for pay-per-clicks, so basically paid ads, and also for search engine optimization. And before we start, now that I know a little bit about your companies, I want to discuss some of the common startup marketing challenges that I've seen with companies similar to the ones represented at SFU VentureLabs, because I've actually worked with some of you in the past. So one of the challenges that everyone talks about is competition, because let's face it, you're starting a business. There's either going to be some kind of a new concept that works better than the old ones that you're trying to promote, in which case you are really competing against the old way of doing things. Or if you have decided to get into an older, more established industry, then you'll be facing the current competitors in that space. So no matter what, you're going to be dealing with competition. And for those of you who are in B2B, this is a huge problem, because as the old saying goes, no one gets fired hiring IBM. So how do we get prospective customers to work with you rather than stick with what is considered safe? That's what we want to explore today. The second challenge is focus. So for those of you, the CEOs in the room who have heard about digital marketing at a very high level, and then you hire a marketing team, you hire a digital agency, and everyone has so many ideas, so many different platforms, fabulous concepts. So what should we focus on? Because trying too many things at once can mean that you don't really get the results that you want. You don't want to just chase after the next big thing and the next big thing. So today I'm going to show you how to really narrow down the focus into what works. Because what is the third challenge that most, if not every single startup has? Limited budget. We are not made of money. We have to choose where we spend very carefully. And sometimes we have to make the decision. We have to choose either A or B, but we don't have the budget for both. And for those of you who are running the companies, there will be some pressure from the board of investors or stakeholders, board of directors, or your investors and stakeholders to see the results quickly. And for those who try things like blogging, social media, to do things to get traffic for free rather than paying for ads, for example, there's always a cost. Your time is really a cost, and it's limited. So what we want to focus on today is how do we do things right. Because you can pick the wrong strategies, and then even if you do it right, that's not going to matter. And there's actually a little bit more to this than just doing the right things right. You also want to do it at the right time, because especially for a startup, not every strategy will work at a particular time. There is somewhat of a linear order. So for those of you who are B2B companies, the R&D and having the initial partnerships to get the first couple of clients are extremely important. And if you don't get that past that phase, you could spend tons of money on advertising, for example, but because you lack the portfolio, the case studies to convince people, that's not going to give you a very good ROI. So I'm going to leave you with this diagram. Because this recording is going to be recorded. But do think about the step number 1 to step number 6 of the overall marketing strategy. So digital marketing really fits into this model after stage 3. So after you have established some of the partnerships and you have got some good referrals going on and then happening, you want to scale up. And that's when you use digital marketing to really get press coverage, to promote those case studies, and then get those inbound leads, no matter you're B2C or B2B. So if you're in e-commerce, it's the same thing. And then lastly, something funny is that people ask me all the time is, hey, roughly how much do you think something will cost? And I always have to ask them 10 questions to get a good idea of what exactly they need before I can make a recommendation as far as this is how much you should spend on your website or on your advertising budget, because everyone's idea of the right quality is different. So for a large public company, they can spend $500,000 on just a research project. And for a startup, you might only want to spend $50. So really defining that quality, that right quality level, that's another thing we're going to focus on as we go through the P.A.C.E workshop. So even within the same strategy, what is the right level for you? That's the $1 million question. So the P.A.C.E digital marketing framework, I created this about 6 or 7 years ago, and the objective was to answer those major challenges. So I've got a couple of philosophies, but one of them, as Allison mentioned earlier, is about measuring things, because as Peter Drucker said a couple of decades ago, you cannot manage what you do not measure, and anything is measurable if you break it down enough. So here with the P.A.C.E framework, we have broken down different tactics into a framework that we'll be going over. And then the second philosophy I have, which I've already started discussing a little bit, is the concept of being linear and knowing the dependencies in your marketing. Because if you have a bad product idea, I'm sure you guys all have wonderful ideas, or you wouldn't be part of SFU VentureLabs. But just saying, if you had a bad product idea, even with the most amazing marketing, it is still a bad idea. And I've got a couple of case examples. I've got tons of case examples today, actually, and I will mostly avoid mentioning any names. Now, a lot of clients that come to us, they talk to us about advertising. And then we actually pull them back when we look at our website and we tell them, hey, we don't think this landing page is going to convert, so we better make a new landing page. Or in some cases, let's work on the conversion on your website first. And then once we talk about the website, it's very, very clear that the messaging is actually quite not there, because what they think their company is about is completely misaligned with what their audience actually seek. So we've got to work on the messaging. Another case example I have about this linear concept is a couple of years ago, someone called us and wanted us to improve the SEO. That was the only objective, because it had been going down. They had been getting less sales. So I took a look at their traffic. And the traffic was down, but they were actually ranking very high. And then it turns out that they were in the computer building industry, as in you put a computer yourself. Like 10 years ago, there were lots of businesses like that. And this was around the time when everyone started just Googling Best Buy or Amazon, and they weren't even searching for Vancouver computers anymore. So what's the right thing to do, right? So you are missing out on sales. You want to bring the sales back. The idea is not to start spending money on advertising. It is to go back and look at the business model. So one solution would be to focus more on B2B and on the financing for B2B companies, and use that rather than focus on the consumer market. So how do we actually think this way? How do we think in a linear fashion? It's actually quite simple. It's almost like writing an essay or writing a news article. We want to start with the 4 W's and the 1 H, the what, where, who, when, and how. So we start with the why. Like, why are people interested in doing business with us? Where are those markets? Where are we playing? Who are the customers and what are their challenges? What buying stage, when throughout the buying cycle do we want to start talking to them? Because you don't want to be too early. You don't want to be too late. And I'm going to explain what that means in a moment. And that's how we finally get to the right channels and tactics. So what is the PACE model? It stands for promote, analyze, convert, and engage. And where did it come from? It actually, I base it off a very traditional concept in retail. So in retail, they say that if you want to increase sales, if you want to increase revenues, a couple of things you need to attract more people into your store. Not going to happen right now during COVID-19, but generally, if you have a physical retail location at the Pacific Center, there's going to be more foot traffic than out in Hope somewhere. You also want to increase the value per customer. So every time they walk into your store, how do you increase the amount that they spend? And lastly, you want to keep them make them keep on coming back. So that's why it's a very common tactic in retail to give out coupons. When you make a purchase, they give you a coupon that is only good 2 weeks from now. It gets my wife a lot. So we used to find ourselves like going back and back to the outlet, to the mall, to get the next good deal because of the coupon she got the last time, before COVID-19 put a stop to that. So now we haven't been out much. And it's really the same with online websites, because we can see our website as just like a physical property. We want to attract more traffic to it. We want people to spend more while they're on the website. And lastly, we want people to keep on coming back. So that's the promote, convert, and engage. And then unlike physical retail, there are a lot more opportunities when it comes to measurement. And that's when the analyze comes in, because you can analyze absolutely everything in digital. And now let's go through this linear process and see how it fits into that. Let the adventure begin. So let's start with why. So one definition, one textbook definition of marketing is communicating your value to your customers so that they choose you. And here's the ultimate brand test that we like to ask everyone we work with. 3 questions. What do you do? How do you do it differently, right? And why should your customers care about that difference? Why? So let's use one case study, case example. So let's say that we are in the private school sector. So we could be a private school, or we could be a consulting tutoring service that helps people get into the private school. You have seen it on the news, like parents would do anything to get their kids into a private school and then into a college. Why? Because at the end of the day, they want a good life for their children, and they have an idea in their head, right or wrong, that their kid will have a much higher chance of success if they were to attend a famous university. And that's how the private school position themselves. Look at the acceptance rate from our school to the top universities in North America, which means if you want your kid to have a good life, to become a medical doctor 15 years from now, you better get into the right kindergarten today, so that one day you can get into the right university, and then finally get a good job. And then how we do it would be based on the features of that school. Or we've got the top teachers. This is the student to teacher ratio. These are the facilities, programs, and so on, rather than just focus on the what. So this is very, very important, because if you don't get this piece right, everything is going to stink after. What it means is that even if people come to your website, you can have the perfect SEO, people are not going to convert. You can spend a lot of money on clicks, they are not going to convert. That value proposition is probably the most important thing to get right before you do anything with digital. And a couple of years ago, I created a framework to help companies get the what, how, and why right. So you might have heard of the book Start with Why, or seen the YouTube videos, the tech talks. Very, very good book. So I took that concept and I combined it with an old consulting model from McKinsey called the 3 Cs. So it stands for your company, competitors, and customers. And then I realized that they link up to each other. The company is what you do. The competitors, it relates to the how, because you have to articulate how you're different than your competitors. And then the why is why they choose you based on the different how compared to the competitors. And finally, I added something that's very useful especially for B2B, but even for B2C, and that's the proof points. So anyone can talk, but how do you prove that you can actually deliver on that how and the why? And then I came up with a framework to tease the what, how, and why out of my clients. And they are based on these 15 questions, which if I were to get into the details, this would take me 2 hours to just explain fully. So instead, what we're going to do, because we have limited time today, is I'm going to give this to you as your homework. And that's going to be on the next page. So you will see exercise 1 in your handout. And just so we get a good idea of where everyone is, let's do another poll. Do you have a what, how, and why statement? Yes, I have it memorized. Yes, well, kind of. Well, no, we're still working on it. Yay, a bunch of people have it memorized. Yes, love that. 30% of you have it memorized. 52%, kind of. And then 20%, no, we're working on it. So, okay, to the 31%, 30%, congratulations. You're ready for digital marketing. The rest of you, you've got some homework to do. So another point I want to quickly illustrate. So what happens with the why that particular difference is relevant to your customers quickly becomes a what as your competitors copy you. So I'll use a famous example. When the iPhone first came out, what was Steve Jobs' big announcement, right, on stage? Oh, this is a phone. This is a computer. This is something else. And then he repeated it a couple of times until everyone just started cheering and basically giving him a standing ovation because, wow, it's a smartphone. Like, wow. And 10 years later, this smartphone, the concept of a smartphone has become just a what? And it happens to every single industry. So this is probably an exercise that you will want to revisit every year, maybe during your corporate planning to see if you're still ahead of your competitors. So once you have the what, the why, you want to think about where you want to play. What I mean by that is having a clear market boundary helps you focus your marketing budget on just the customers that matter, the ones that are most aligned with your business model, rather than try to please everyone. So for a B2B company, the sales bucket, so this is what I would call a sales bucket, is often based on the revenue size, employee count, and the geographical location and what stage the company is at, and lastly, what vertical they are in. And for the B2C sector, everything always goes back to the age, geography, and also the income and then finally the interest. Yeah, so with that said, I have the next question. Do you have a clear sales bucket? So here you see we've put down 4 levels. Yes, it is clear, and we actively use it to disqualify prospects. So this is a very powerful statement. The best salespeople actually say, yeah, we work with maybe 2 out of every 5 customers we deal with. And then this is the type of customers we work with. Do you qualify? The second one is yes, but yeah, it's on paper, but we in reality will work with anyone. And then the third one, it's not a formal one. We just kind of know from experience, but it's not written down. And then finally, no, we do business with anyone and everyone, and that's where you don't want to be. And that's let me look at the answer. So most of you actually answer kind of, and know we're working on it. So this is definitely another take-home exercise you want to do. Think about your where you want to play. And once you figure out where you want to play, then you think about the people who are in that segment. And then that's when you can use the concept of a user persona. So this is one of the many types of marketing directors that we have worked with, or that we do work with. And yes, there are different types of marketing directors. So this one in particular, they're all about generating leads. And everything they're thinking and feeling is all about generating leads. And then they have got goals, and then they have got pain points. And guess what? When I work with marketing teams, when I talk to them, I take all of these things into consideration. So whatever solution I build for them actually suits them perfectly. And you can also apply the user personas to websites. So I'm going to do a big call out to Natalie from Optical, because I thought I would put an Easter egg into this slide deck and give her a surprise, because I figured she would be here today. So if you look at Optical's website, it's completely based on the different personas that they work with. You've got the case study for the decision makers up where the banner is. If you look to the left, they're also targeting architects that are doing research on the concept of healthy building networks. So they've got a little bit of a blurb about that, which is also great for SEO. And then to the right of that paragraph, you see a couple of key points. Why should someone worry about having a healthy building network when they design a building? And then up above that, you see the secondary navigation. This is a very common layout tactic among technology companies, because you might have engineers who don't really want to learn about healthy building networks. They know what that is. It's a waste of time for them to read up on it. They just care about the specs. They just care about the numbers. And I'm sure you all have clients like that. So for those guys, we have got the specs link. And then for existing users, we've got a link to get the support. So what do your users want? Make sure that what they want actually is reflected on your website. So quick question. Do you have user personas? About half and half. That's good. 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 Very good. So now we're going to take those user personas and do something with it. And for those of you who don't have user personas yet, that is the exercise number 3 in the handout for you. Please follow the instructions, just answer these questions, and then put them into your first persona, and then create as many as you need. Remember, as you go through this exercise, you want to uncover what's on their mind that you can provide solutions for, because we will be using these key points to create the ads, and also to come up with additional content on your website that will help push the sale along, both for B2C and B2B. And how do we do that? Well, that's when the buying stages come in. Because even though like this whole digital marketing, this internet thing is new to our society and totally changed the way we do business, at the very core, our human emotions have largely remained unchanged. And I dare say we make the same buying decisions, we make our decisions based on the same emotions we were making, our ancestors were making 2,000 years ago. We always go through the following stages: aware, search, evaluate, decide, evangelize. So this is based on a very old marketing model that is more than 100 years old. And it still works. We have to be aware that we have a need or problem before we search for something. And then once we start searching for it, if we still want it, we start evaluating the different options, the best price, the best vendor. We make a decision. And if we like the service or product, we tell other people about it. And if we don't like it, we write them a very bad review. And I'll use my wife as an example. She's not here. She's actually working at the office and not at home today, so I get to talk about her. So how does she get the idea that she needs another pair of shoes? And she has a lot of shoes. She'll be browsing someone's social media feeds, one of her friends, and then they'll have a selfie, or they'll have taken a picture of their new pair of shoes, the new finds. And then she'll be like, oh, I really like this style. And then she'll search for similar styles online. And then she'll look at the slight variations, consider different sites, different prices, read the reviews. And then in the old days, she would have gone down to the mall to buy it. And then now, because of COVID and because of my Amazon Prime subscription, which I made a mistake of adding her to the account, it's just one click, and then she can make a buy and make a purchase. And then the next day, it's waiting on the porch. And then guess what she's going to do? She'll take pictures, and then she'll share on her feed. And then some of her friends will go through the same cycle. And that's digital marketing, because what we want to do is we want to think about these buying stages and think about how we can target everyone during each stage. And how do we do that? We want to think about what happens during each of these stages. We want to think about what's on their mind, what are the key concerns, what are some of the key questions they may have, and what are some good answers. And then you take the good answers and the key questions, and hey, you flip it around, that actually becomes content for your website. That actually becomes the headlines for your advertising. It's magic. It works really, really well. So a bunch of you are B2B companies, as I kind of guessed. So I want to show how this relates. So in a B2B buying journey, we can simplify into 3 questions. Is there a problem or opportunity for me? Or is there not? Sometimes you have to convince the client that they have a problem or opportunity before they know it. And what that means is that you get in early and you're seen as an educator. But it also means that the sales cycle is going to be very long. And then the sales stage is, how can I fix it? I know I have a problem. How do I take advantage of the opportunity? And then evaluate. The primary question is, are you right for me? Why should I work with you rather than your competitors across the hall? And for those of you who focus on the evaluate stage, it will mean a shorter sales cycle. But what it also means is that the client will most likely be more price sensitive and relationship driven than if you were the one who were kind of holding their hand and helping them discover their problem or opportunity. And then what you want to do with your ads and with your content is for the aware stage, you would want, if you focus on this stage, then your advertising should be based on telling people why there is a need for something, such as some of the telcos we work with, they want to promote like the concept of 5G to their customers. So why is 5G good? And then let's say someone is sold on a concept of 5G. Why this way of implementing 5G is the best way, and we've decided to take in this approach. And let's say that someone already knows that this is the best approach. Then why are we the best vendor? Why pick my client over another company like Huawei or Cisco or something? Like, why us? So this is a call out to TalentClick, which might be in the room. So a couple of months ago, they put up some new content that targets the evaluation stage. So basically, the hypothesis was HR managers know about personality testing, employee testing anyway, before they hire someone. They want to, so they don't need to be sold on the concept. They do need to be sold the concept of why they should choose TalentClick over the other testing solutions out there. And that's the concept behind this particular marketing initiative. And then for Radiuses, they do telco equipment. And quite often they need to focus on the aware stage because it takes years to deploy, to sign a contract. And if you wait until the evaluate stage, you would have lost the sale to one of your competitors already. So I think you can guess what the next poll question is. Oh, actually, we're not quite there yet. The question is which stage you want to focus on for your digital marketing. And basically, different tactics work based on a buying stage. So you can see here that based on a P.A.C.E model, so these are all tactics from the P.A.C.E model. If you focus on the aware stage, search advertising isn't for you because no one is going to be searching for a keyword they don't even know about yet. So you would primarily want to be using display advertising. On the other hand, if something is a commodity and you know that people are searching for it, then search advertising works, and talking about how you're better than your competitors for that commodity will work very well. So basically, you want to look at your industry. You want to see where you are in terms of this product life cycle. Is it a completely new thing? Is it still in a growth stage? Is it starting to mature? is it starting to see somewhat of a decline in terms of sales? Is it a commodity? And then that would influence the marketing channels that we will pick out using the P.A.C.E digital marketing model. So let's do the poll. Which selling stage is the most important to you? Let's see. I'm very curious about this one. So far aware. Interesting. Yeah, it makes sense because SFU VentureLabs incubation program. Most of you probably have some very groundbreaking, innovative concepts. So interesting, very, very good to know. So I think you'll find the display advertising portion of this workshop very useful. So, good, very, very good. So the next exercise that I want you to do at home after this workshop, because some of you are already home, is to define your customer buying cycle. So do a little bit of brainstorming, maybe have a cup of coffee or a glass of wine, and then enjoy this experience of putting yourself in your customer's shoes and think about what kind of topics and content they want at each buying cycle. And then what is the next step? Do a content audit on your current website. See how your current website actually matches the type of content that should be on your website. So far, we have covered the basic introduction to the P.A.C.E model. We have covered what, how, and why. I think this is the perfect place to take a quick break. I think 2 minutes might be a little bit too short. Maybe we can make it, how about 4 minutes? And then we will restart. So right now it's 10:52. We will restart at 10:56. One more minute. I'm looking at the clock. Another 30 seconds. This is the part I miss the most about running these workshops, because when I do it in person, we actually do the exercises or start on the exercises together, and then I've got a stopwatch, and I give everyone pressure, a lot of pressure, by counting down like they're writing an exam. Okay, let's start. I hope everyone is back. Yeah, so good. We covered a lot of high-level strategy during the first half of this first half of the workshop. So now I'm going to slow down a little bit, because we get into the more of the implementation details. We still won't have too much time to get into all the nitty-gritty details, but I want to point out what is truly important when it comes to the technical topics today, SEO and also pay-per-clicks. So let's start with let's make sure everyone is on the same page. Let's start with the question: what is pay-per-click? Pay-per-click basically means you're buying the media. So it could be you're paying for a number of impressions. You could be buying per clicks. Basically, just overall paid media, similar to like buying a television ad or buying a radio spot, except it is online. I get asked a lot, like, why should I use pay-per-click? And my answer actually always is, I think everyone should be running some kind of a pay-per-click or paid campaign, I should say paid campaign, when they fit the following criteria. Number one, if you want to target people who are not aware of your offer, which basically, if we look at the poll result from earlier, a big chunk of you have new innovative solutions that the market doesn't know about yet, which means they might not be searching for it. Display advertising is very important to you in that case. The second reason is when you want to re-engage people who have been to your website before. So for the marketers in the room, maybe even for the non-marketers in the room, I'm sure you've heard that it takes between 7 to 13 times of exposure before someone finally makes the buying decision. And this is for consumer products. For like B2B, it could be even longer, more exposure than that. Think of, for those of you who are on HubSpot, Marketo, or another marketing automation platform, think about how many years you have followed their blog and ads, or read books on the subject before you finally made the investment to get onto their platforms. And you might have forgotten about marketing automation if it weren't for that repeat exposure to the concept. Another great reason to use pay-per-click is if you want to get traffic faster. So yes, there is a cost to paying for it, but in return, you can just switch on the traffic, and it literally takes minutes for you to start receiving traffic, so that you can start testing the headline, start testing the layout, the offer. Also, when you want to diversify your traffic, so here's another case. Obviously, this one I can't mention the name, but there's a company that in Vancouver that mostly relied on search engine traffic. And guess what? One day they had the rug pulled because their SEO agency was using black hat tactics. So basically spamming their search engines, and the company's owners didn't know. They were just counting on that traffic, right, to make their business work. But as soon as their free organic traffic dropped, then pretty much it was like going out of business for them, because their whole business model is depending on that traffic. So what I like doing with my clients is I like to diversify. So when a client only relies on pay-per-click, I tell them to work on the SEO and on building the brand a little, so that if pay-per-click cost goes up, it's not going to ruin their business. On the flip side, if a company only focus on SEO, I tell them to get onto pay-per-click, because you want to diversify. And then another reason is to get clicks for keywords that would be very, very hard to rank high for organically. Some keywords are very competitive, and you are fighting against companies much larger than you, with a lot more backlinks. And the nature of the keyword means that you won't be able to rank high for it without a huge investment. And that's when you can use pay-per-click, even though it is an auction model. Sometimes your clicks, you get less clicks, like your ad shows up less than someone who bids higher, but it does show up. When you want predictable traffic, because once you start using pay-per-click on a continuous basis, then you get into a pattern, you get into a rhythm, and you know when to turn things on, you know when to turn things off. So I've got clients where, like, if they've met the sales quota for the month or for the quarter, then we start lowering the spend, and then we save that money so that the next quarter, like at the beginning, we do a higher push. Finally, when you want to test, because the downside to just focusing on organic traffic is things take more time, which if you're a startup and need to move quickly and move through all those iterations quickly, then you want speed, and pay-per-click can give you that speed. And now with all these benefits, why do companies avoid using pay-per-click? Well, a lot of times cost. A lot of companies have not set aside a budget for doing pay-per-click, so their whole marketing budget goes to hiring the team, and not much is left for the media. So that's and then I like saying that. And another reason is that they have tried it and they didn't make a positive return on investment on it. So I've got a golden rule. If you want to see if your business is has a viable business model, then try to make the pay-per-click campaign work, or find an angle that makes the pay-per-click conversion costs make sense. Because I've got so many case studies that have taught me, if you cannot survive, as in make money, using pay-per-click, and your competitors are able to do that, in the long run, there's something missing in your overall business model or business strategy that will make it very hard for you to compete against your competitors. And you want to find out what that thing is. So let's do a quick poll. Are you using pay-per-clicks at the minute? Are you managing it internally through an agency, or did you used to, but you have stopped because you didn't see the results that you want? And hopefully after this presentation, you'll have a little bit more interest in trying it again. Good. So some of you are, the majority of you are not. So good. So hopefully, actually, most of you aren't. Hopefully, once we've gone through this workshop, it will put it on the radar for you. Let's start with talking about the different types of paid media. And I also want to kind of unmask some of the common industry jargons that you might have heard from other marketers in books, publications, or even from ad agencies. Because every couple of years, the industry will come up with some new terms in order to pitch to you. So basically, there are two types of paid media. At a very high level, there are only two types. One is search and one is display. The difference is with search, it means you're showing ads to people who are searching for something. So you search for an Audi ad comes up. You search for a Mercedes, an Audi ad also comes up because they're bidding on that keyword. Display ads works differently. Display ads is without someone doing something. They are pushing the ad into your face. So you're browsing on YouTube, and then all of a sudden you see an ad, a little video about the new Audi 2021 that's coming out. So that's a display ads. And now you will hear some other keywords and native ads, programmatic or programmable ads. You'll hear those terms a lot. So what is a native ad? What a native ad means is that it is a display ad that follows the format of the site or the application that it is on. So it means that if it is in a social media feed, it kind of looks like another social media post, even though it is really a paid ad. So it's really a display ad. So when they first started doing that, they were called display ads, but because the industry wanted a new term to pitch to clients, that's when they started using these terms. So when you hear the word native, just know that it means the word display. How about programmatics? It means, so they talk about, oh, it's the secret AI, like we will use big data to show the ads to relevant audiences. Yes, but there's also a fair bit of it's just a marketing thing. Before they created that word, some of the same algos were already available to display ads, but the industry needed a term. So we'll be going over some of those targeting options in a little bit. So we'll focus on search and display ads today. So no matter you are doing things using search or display ads, a couple of general targeting tips that will help give you better results. So number one is think about the location, and the location actually matters a lot. So we are looking at a map of Greater Vancouver here, and I have one case example for a plumbing company that I won't name, and they reached out to us because they wanted to see how they could optimize their campaign, because they were spending over $1 million in pay-per-click a year. I know, a plumbing company. But try calling a plumber after hours, like $500 an hour. They can afford it. So they have already hired and fired multiple agencies because they didn't like the ad copy. And using the P.A.C.E model, what do we say when the client comes to us with like a perceived solution? Hey, let's walk a couple of steps back. Maybe it's not the ad copy. Let's look at the business. Let's look at your targeting. So I looked at their CRM and figured about 90-something% of the revenue was coming from the Fraser Valley. This is a company based out of the Fraser Valley. And then we looked at their targeting for the ad campaigns. And more than 90%, more than 95%, if I remember correctly, was actually spent in Vancouver, mostly around the downtown core. So it doesn't match up, and no wonder they weren't getting the results that they wanted. So I made them a deal. I told them that in order for us to help them, they have to install something called telephone tracking, so we can track the results of every single phone call and use that to optimize. And even though that would take a little bit of money, it's not a big amount, a little bit, I can promise that I can cut their marketing budget by about 90%, and they won't see their revenue drop more than 3%. And I could guarantee that. Well, gentlemen's promise anyway. They flipped out a little bit. We had a big fight, and then they went for it. And then we did the experiment where we shut off the whole Greater Vancouver, and then we boosted the budget out in the Fraser Valley. They actually had more sales than before, and they were spending a lot less. And this is how something as simple as thinking about the geography can help you. Now, there are times when you want to do things in reverse. There are times when you want to focus on markets where you don't have a presence, and you want to up the budget. However, that should be a calculated move, and you should prepare to not have as good of a result in a new market than basically your old playground. So that's targeting. And then the by location. The second important thing to remember is age. And it's really, really funny because especially with consumer products, age plays such a big factor. I have seen like campaigns. I've worked with campaigns where all we have to do to boost the conversion rate is focus on a very, very tight age range, along with sometimes the gender. For example, for some offers, maybe you only want to target people under 25. In other scenarios, you might want to target people between 35 and 45. So I won't give the exact age range away for an organic chicken company in case there are other or in case there's an organic chicken startup in this room. So for an organic chicken farm client, all we did was we focused on a particular age segment and gender to run display ads, and also based on the location, which location, which postal codes will be more likely to buy organic because they have money and they're used to buying organic. That gave us a really, really good campaign. Interest is another one. So this nowadays, Google would call it more programmable or programmatic ads, especially when mixing with other networks. Basically, you are targeting people who have shown that in the past, based on their browsing history and so on, that they're interested in a certain subject. So rather than targeting, I want to put an ad on CNN.com, I am going to target someone who is interested in dating or bodybuilding or a new specific brand of car. For example, if someone is looking for an Audi, maybe they would also be interested in a Mercedes or BMW. So I would target those. Or if someone is interested in heavy machinery, which is the case example here, then perhaps they would be interested in the heavy machinery rental. So you're targeting people based on interest. And both Facebook and Google have a huge database of interest that you can target. Similar audiences is a little bit of early AI that just rolled out maybe 5 or 6 years ago. So basically, when you target people who have been to your website before, you can ask Google to expand that audience with an audience of like matchmaking of their choice, people that they think is similar. So I find this quite often it's okay to use in B2C products because it all goes back to the age. Some hobbies as well as the geographical location and so on. For B2B, it's not that accurate in my experience because someone can be similar to you as a B2B audience, as a B2C audience, but they are not after the B2B topic that your professional life entails. And then the next targeting tactic is emails, or what we call membership. So what that means is you literally upload an email list to either Facebook or Google, and you tell them that, hey, I want to show display ads to these people and these people only. So this is great if you have captured a lot of email contact info in the past. Just know that there are minimal requirements to turning this on because of, unfortunately, spammers have been using it, buying a list and then uploading a list and then starting a new account when they get caught. But if your account has this feature enabled, It is very, 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 very powerful. Lastly, targeting by language, which often works. So we do this a lot with clients that, especially like we in Vancouver, with such diversity in the city. So you see an Audi ad in Chinese because it works. The conversion rate is very, very high. Another great example is doing marketing for private schools. We have a lot of success doing a language-based targeting. And then, so those are the general tips that apply to any campaign. Now we'll focus on search. And then we'll focus on display ads. So search, as I was saying earlier, the advantages are you can target people that are further down the buyer's journey. They're already at the search or evaluation stage. They know what they're searching for. So you can use those ads to test the messaging a lot faster than waiting for the SEO to happen. The downside is that some of the keywords can get very, very expensive. Usually they're a couple of dollars each, and for some like truly competitive keywords, I've seen like $35 or $45 per click in extremely competitive industries related to like mortgages. So there are 6 types of keywords: general, problem-based, symptom-based, question-based, product name-based, and brand-based. And these all match up with different buying stages. And another example of why it's so important to get the buying stage right? You can clearly see how everything flows down from that buyer's journey. So we'll start with the general keywords. So general keywords are used when you don't really know what you're searching for and you're just testing the water. So they tend to be very, very broad, kind of like bodybuilding. Would be a general keyword, or selling online, e-commerce, internet marketing, digital marketing. These are all very, very high-level topics. And then you have got the problem-based keywords that is great for like especially consumer products. So rather than bodybuilding, it's like, oh, trouble gaining muscles, or can't lose belly, CLA to lose gut. And then you've got the symptom-based keywords like I've got a headache, I've got a cold sore, oh, I'm skinny with a gut. That's definitely a symptom right there. And you can see all these like listings, right? Oh, skinny fat, skinny fat. B2B examples: high bounce rate, website ranking low, or this not working, that not working. And then we've got the questions-based keywords. Should I work out at night? What is the best time to take CLA? How to use social media in B2B? How to track telephone calls using Google Analytics? Evaluate stage. We get product comparison keywords. So this is like, I know I want something. I want to find the best price, or I want to find the closest variations. So I might search for a model number. I might go like iPad Pro versus, and then whatever the Samsung equivalence is. HubSpot versus Marketo, which is also the next one. Brand-based keywords. So over time, in many industries, if not all industries, things start gravitating towards a couple of big players. And rather than searching for Vancouver computers, Vancouver computer store, we now search for Apple. We search for Best Buy. We search for Amazon. This is horrible for the small businesses because it makes it harder for them to survive. And as a startup, you should think about, oh, how do I start building the brand? Because the more people are familiar with your brand, the better it is for you to control your marketing costs in the long run. So the brand-based keywords, the buying stages are evaluate, decide, and evangelize. So sometimes you're already ranking high for your own keyword. If you want a double listing, you can use pay-per-click to bid on it as well. You can also try bidding on your competitors' keywords. So let's say product A is a competitor, and then you're product B. So you bid on product A as a keyword, and then your ad will say product B versus the rest. See how we are better. So you're not really mentioning product A's name to not get into any kind of legal trouble. You just, hey, see how we are the best, and then the landing page will have some kind of a comparison chart on it. And then display ads. They're great for targeting people who don't realize they have a need yet. Another perfect use for it is to actually use them to push people to the next stage of the buying cycle. So, for example, I know that they are aware of the problem already because they came to the landing page and they downloaded, they haven't downloaded something yet. And then I want them to push them to the search or evaluate stage. So I run a campaign retargeting people who've been to my website before, and the ad copy is the selection criteria for this type of product, kind of like the talent click example I showed earlier. And then people are like, oh, cool. How do you know I'm looking for like a vendor in this? And then they download the kit, the assessment kit. And then now your salespeople will know that they're somewhat interested because they're moving along the buying cycle. Or you have some kind of an offer, like end of quarter offer, whatever it is. And then you can limit the targeting to where you're doing business in. You can use it to augment our activities. I love running trade show ads before and after the trade show for clients before COVID-19 happened. So we would run a campaign, visit us at booth, blah, 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 at this industry event. And then after the trade show, then we'll have the white paper or assessment ready as the next step to follow up. Disadvantages, it is a lengthier cycle if you're targeting the earlier buying stages. And also the targeting can be a little bit tricky for some B2B industries because most of the targeting options are for B2C. But with that said, Google is getting a lot better at that. There are now some very, very interesting subcategories when it comes to B2B interests. And then native ads I've already talked about. So basically they are just like display ads, except they're showing up in the middle of your Instagram feed, your Twitter feed, your Facebook feed. So those are called native ads. A couple of important tips: watch where your ads are showing. Make sure they're not just showing up in mobile games because that's a complete waste of your budget. So I usually look through you can see where your lists have been showing. And every mobile app, then we just like remove, blacklist. And also watch if you're using contextual targeting, which means if certain keywords on the page, your ad will show. Make sure you don't get into this type of situation where this is a retargeting ad from McDonald's that happened to be on an article about eating too much McDonald's and becoming overweight as a result. And then a couple more tips: cap your display impression. So set the limit, like maybe 7 times a day, and then after a couple of days, 7 times a week, so that it's not showing the ad over and over to the same person, which gets annoying really fast. And then lastly, as I was saying earlier, think about how you can combine your display ads with other channels, like use ads to drive traffic to webinars, to seminars, to white paper downloads, to your trade shows and conferences. Really think integrated marketing. So we usually time remarketing campaigns with an email blast, so that they're happening at the same time. So when you turn your computer on as a prospect of one of our clients, like there's no way to miss the offer, because we're targeting you both over email and also by remarketing ads whenever there's a new product coming out. So the take-home exercise, this one is a little bit more technical. So for those of you who already have an AdWords campaign, go through these exercises and make sure you're utilizing the targeting options fully. And then for those of you who are not using pay-per-click yet, use these exercises to see to think about the possibilities and how you could potentially reach a wider audience. So that's exercise 7, 8, and 9. And then a couple of final tips before we move on to search engine optimization and then the Q&A. A couple of tips for writing the ads. State the benefits clearly and make sure the benefits is related to the user persona and the buying stage. Remember, people think about different things during each stage of the buying cycle. So make sure you're very, very focused on whatever stage you want to target. Have a call to action, a next step whenever possible. And if you want to qualify out people, mention price, because it stops people from being curious. They want to know how much something costs. So by showing it on the ads, you turn away people from clicking on the ad unless they actually want to go ahead. And then make sure the message is consistent with the landing page. A lot of the campaigns we look at when a new client first comes to us, like everything takes people to the homepage, and then okay, what's the next step? And then people are just going to click on back on the browser. Do a lot of split testing, include the keywords in the ad copy, and then a landing page. Make sure people know why they're on the landing page. Make it very, very clear with one objective. Don't mislead people. Have a headline that refers to the main message of the ad, and then have a clear next step on the ad, be it to contact you for a consultation or to download the white paper. Try to include some testimonials, build up that social proof, and then do a lot of split testing. And then, with that said, let's move on to search engine optimization. We're doing good on time with about 27 minutes left. So what is search engine optimization? Search engine optimization is basically trying to do things to make your website rank higher on search engines. That's what search engine optimization is. And why is that important? Because you could have the most fabulous content on your website, but if no one finds it, then it doesn't exist. When do you want to start thinking about search engine optimization? Well, a couple of things. If you're rebuilding your website, then you should think about doing things in such a way that that helps with the SEO. When you have but if you already have a website, then you want to think, okay, when I run a pay-per-click campaign, am I getting the results that I want? And then if I'm not, should I bother to do with SEO, not knowing what could happen? So we would want to maybe test a little bit with the pay-per-click first. When you're certain your offer or content converts well, And then also when you're sure that you have somewhat of a chance of ranking high for the keywords you're aiming for. Like if you're a complete newcomer and you want to rank high for the word mortgage, I'm going to say good luck, because it's going to be very competitive. When you have a website that amplifies your marketing efforts, especially the SEO efforts, when you have time and resource to create good content. What's the only downside? Time and effort, because if you start putting the amount of time it takes you to write that blog post, and then you didn't make a single sale, maybe we could have taken the same money and gotten a few clicks and gotten a lead. So let's do a quick poll. Are you actively working on SEO? Yes. Internally? Yes. With an agency? No. And let's look at the results. Got a couple of yes, a couple of no's. Looks like it's mostly slightly more than half and half. Okay, the majority of you are working on the SEO. Good. Very, very good. Happy to hear that. But this does show that something doesn't match up, because there were more of you working on SEO than those who don't. But when we did the pay-per-click, there were less of you working on the pay-per-click, working on your pay-per-click, which means you're breaking that golden rule. Try to get the pay-per-click working before you do SEO. So keep that in mind. So there are a lot of factors in the search algorithm, but I'm going to condense it into something simple. First of all, there are two types of listings: organic and local listings and main listings. Local listings are the map, the addresses, localized results. And for you to rank higher, I don't think this applies to any of you. Basically, it has to do with whether you've properly filled out your profile on Google Business listings, and whether you've put certain keywords in it. And then the second factor is the location. Okay. Because Google wants to show locations that are somewhat near the searcher. And then the third factor is the number of reviews your business has. And then this is actually pretty important. And then the last factor is something called citations. So citations is basically when you have business directories on newspapers and so on, other websites referring to your phone number and physical address and company name. So this is kind of like linking to a website, except it is listing your phone number and contact information. But I don't think this applies to most of you, because this is more for restaurants and local services. What you would want to focus on would be the main SEO listings, in which case, even after 10 years, that's only it's pretty similar. What I call a 20-20-60 rule. So it means that about 20% of your search engine success will come from the site structure. So when you build your site, when you rebuild the site, how are things laid out that influence the content. Things like the URL structure. One example is I've got clients where they don't have any subfolders on their site, because that's how their team built the website initially, and then everything is flat. But then to Google, what that means is that they see every page as the same in the level of importance. That's why it's so flat. Rather than more like a pyramid, you get 10 subpages, and then each subpage has another 10 sub-pages. So that tends to mess up your SEO a little bit. So things like that, these are mostly technical issues that you need developers to change. Another common thing would be duplicate content issues where there are two versions of your site. One is with the www, the other one is without. And when you type both into the browser, both work rather than like one redirects to the other one. So little things like this. And then lastly, things like page speed, mobile optimization, information architecture. So if you Google page speed score, generally you want to score on a desktop over 80, and then on mobile over 65. If you have like 20 and 30, your website will not rank as high as someone with a general higher page speed. Then the next 20% of search engine optimization is about the content. So you want to make sure that every page has like the simple basic stuff, right? Like a proper page title, a proper description, so that on the search engine listing itself, when it shows up, is relevant. That you have the relevant tags in the images, things like that. Every time you blog, you want to make sure that you're following the right rules. And then the remaining is all about the linking. Social media signals, you can actually cross off Google Plus. It's not relevant anymore. They've killed off that platform. So Google will look at a combination of the social signals and also the number of backlinks to the page. And this is why larger companies that have been around for a very long time have an advantage, because they might have tens of thousands of links linking back to your website. So how do you get more backlinks? It takes time. You will want to make sure people are linking to your website, linking to articles, so partners are linking to you in their vendor directory. Article sites, legitimate article sites referencing your article sources. If you are famous, if you have been mentioned by a traditional media outlet before, then you can create your wiki listing. If you have not had any professional coverage, that's difficult to do because the wiki moderators might remove your page. So it does this part. It does link up with what Allison was saying earlier about the PR. So maybe check out the PR workshop that SFU VentureLabs is hosting soon. Yeah, so that's the social proof, and this has been the way it has been for the past 10 years or so, and I don't foresee it changing anytime soon. Instead, what's likely going to happen is for local listings, things will just keep on getting more and more localized, so that bit about the map results, that's going to matter. And then another trend is more marketers are going to focus on pay-per-clicks because of the localized results. And then lastly, overall across multiple industries, we are seeing search volume go down for their primary keywords. Why? Because digital habits are changing. We're now getting so much stuff pushed out to our face based on our personality, on our social media feeds, that we have less time or less of a need to search for things. Google knows when I'm looking for a new tablet, and before I start searching for it, it starts giving me different options. And then I go to Amazon or Best Buy to get the best price. And then I skip a lot of the research I would have done in the past. So I do have an exercise that I'll let you guys take offline. That is exercise number 10, the SEO audit run through. So let me skip. And I think we have about 15 minutes left for questions. Let's hear the questions, and you guys are always welcome if you need more detailed answers, or if you want me to take a personal look on anything. You can always email me at martin@smart with a double T .com, and I would be happy to answer.
Martin, can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. I'll ask you some of the questions that have come in. I know it's super hard to talk into a vacuum. So
sure, yeah.
Pretend we're having a conversation.
Yay.
I had a couple people email me before the session, and they were super curious about, could you run a successful pay-per-click campaign for a B2B tech company? Like, can you give us an example of something that you've seen that's successful for a B2B?
Mm-hmm. A lot of examples, actually. If you pick the right keyword, the volume might be low, but you will see the results. And if your landing page has an offer that fits with their buying stage, they will convert. Some other things I do with B2B is I usually install an IP tracker on the page to do a reverse lookup of their IP address. Some platforms do this naturally. I think Marketo does this actually. So you can look at which companies are coming to that page, and then your salespeople will know if they're interested, even if they don't feel comfortable just giving away and signaling that that they're interested. The only time, so I'll give the reverse case study actually. When B2B pay-per-clicks doesn't work, the only scenario I can think of is when the keywords overlap with B2C keywords, such as you are targeting, let's say, a dental implant guide for dentists. Then it's difficult because then it'll pick up all the consumers who are looking for dental implants. Or if you bid on the word 5G, it doesn't work because you've got a lot of consumers bidding on the looking for the same keyword as a consumer. Did that help? Does that answer the question?
Yep, very much so. Got a question that came in from Kyle. Do you have experience with growing a YouTube channel as a way to build awareness and customer demand? If so, any advice?
Okay, I've got a dirty story, actually, because I used to do it a long time ago. So with YouTube, what you have to know, the unspoken secret is that you need followers in order to gain more followers. So the dirty truth is there's a lot of sketchy stuff going on in the background. There are agency networks that work with each other to push a video up organically until it gets onto the first page. And then that's when it has the possibility of getting going viral. In the past, I've actually written scripts to do this using machines. I don't do that anymore, and Google has actually done a very good job of filtering that out. So now after 5,000 hits, there's a manual review by a human to see if those were the hits were legit or not. So how can you do it? You need to make sure that you befriend a lot of influencers, and you get the influencers to push your video. You might have to pay them. You might have to buy them drinks. And if you go down that path, there are actually some influencer conferences. I'm not sure about now because of COVID, but all the YouTube celebrities will actually hang out, and then they do backroom deals on I promote your video, you promote mine, and so on.
Okay. Thanks. Okay. Wonder if you could comment a bit on social media marketing. Do you think it's more effective for B2C or B2B? Or some of your thoughts, comments on that?
Okay, so B2C for sure, it is effective. B2B, yes and no. So B2B, you tend to get a certain type of audience. I have seen it work for B2B companies where their target audience are small business owners who are on their phone a lot when they go out. So I'm talking about like general contractors and so on, as entrepreneurs running their own business. In a more corporate environment, what happens is there's usually an arm's length between the decision maker and the user of the system. And your social media activities will be, it's a lot easier to target those end users than the corporate executive who are holding the purse strings. So as with everything, track and look at the results. You might see a lot of engagement, but look at how many leads it actually converts into.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Question came in from Rowan. What do you think is the future of digital marketing? Like, are you seeing certain trends coming in and anything just going away? Like, i.e., you mentioned like Google Plus just disappearing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a very big topic. What I think. So every year I look at what is going on from three perspectives. Number one is I look at the design perspective. How things look, what kind of styles are coming. And I think that HTML5 videos, not videos, ads will become more and more common. So ads that are a little bit more interactive than just a banner ad. So that's one. And then in terms of channels, platforms come and platforms go. You just need to focus on the audience and see where they are going. So every platform has a slight different demographics audience. Like if I'm targeting women, I would be using Pinterest a lot. Instagram used to be more female oriented, except in the past year. So the contractor example I spoke of, like a lot of them are on Instagram and they love watching like machines like grind and so on. So look at don't focus on a platform, focus on the audience and then the platform. And then lastly, when it comes to the big technology changes, I think AI will continue to play a bigger and bigger role. So what that means is when you do your segmentation, it will be like, it will be more and more powerful. You'll be able to get right down to the person you want to target. On the flip side, I think we'll see a continued decline of search as things are just pushed to us. The best search engine will be the one where they give you the answer before you can tell them what you are thinking. And I think in a couple of years, that's going to be the future of digital marketing.
Okay. I have a comment on that. You and I had worked on a project for a company, and I had done one search before on a medical condition, and the next few times in my feed, when I typed in the word A, I typed in the letter A, yes, ankylosing spondylitis came up immediately for me. But so somehow they knew I had been doing the slightest bit of research in a topic area. So I think you're very right about the predictive needs coming forward.
Yeah, absolutely.
We got a question from Joanne. Wondering if you could re-explain what a backlink is and how to build one or two or more.
Sure, absolutely. So a backlink is when someone is linking to your website. And there are two parts to it. One is the actual link, like www.google.com. And then the other half is called the anchor text. So the anchor would be what you're calling the link. Like if you link to someone as click here for more information, click here for more information is the anchor text, even though the actual URL is pointing to Google. So what that tells us is when you're doing on-site optimization, internal linking for your website, you want to make sure that you are using the anchor word, anchor text based on a keyword that you want to rank higher for, rather than just like click here or read more. I don't know about now, but for the longest time, either download here or something like some very, very common keyword. When you type that into the search engine, the page for the Adobe Reader used to come up because so many different websites have linked to the Adobe download page and then use download here as the anchor text. And then the second part of the question is, how do you get more backlinks? Well, you need friends. You need people to link to you, vendors, customers, publications that print your article. So that's when your social media might come into play. You write very, very good content, and then you push the content over social media, and then you hope that other bloggers and influencers will be commenting on it and linking to you.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, we actually already answered this one. Do you have any examples that you have for a B2C company, specifically a fashion and media company?
Yep. So fashion, no. I have dealt with furniture, which is also based a lot on the looks. So the best advice that I can give for fashion is, or furniture, the website itself, it's all about the photography. What I find e-commerce, it's all about the photography. And having the use cases. So I'm not talking about photos of the products. I'm talking about people posing or living rooms that are set up in a certain way. Those help people convert. And then you want to take those images and then you want to think about lifestyle. How do I market a certain lifestyle using display ads? So even with the headline, it gives you a certain feeling. If I were to buy this jacket, I will look and feel like that Instagram model or that a person with money for the fancy living room.
Okay, great. We had another one come up in the chat. Are there certain strategies we should focus on and employ today to meet the change to more predictive search?
Yes, the predictiveness has to come from something. So I couldn't do my whole SEO presentation today because of the time limitations. What I skipped was the part about search engines, how they evolved, because their goal is to mimic human nature. So the machine wants to think like a human, which means if we think like a human, we can actually answer that question. And the Google and other search engines will be optimizing to fit our thinking. So one exercise I make clients go through is after that content journey, the what are they thinking, what's on their mind, good questions, good answers. We turn those phrases into search phrases, and those becomes the so-called predictive phrases for search engine optimization.
Okay, great. I think so we've got one last question. I'm not 100% sure I understand the question. How can I decide on a market, the where, before considering the people who are being in this market?
Well, the honest truth is money. So now it's a chicken and the egg problem. You know who you're targeting, therefore you know the market. However, where you target that depends on the price of the product. Are you more of an expensive item? Are you shooting for volume? If you're shooting for volume, if you're B2B, it will be for the smaller business, not the Fortune 500 companies that really don't care about price, but only care about your reputation, for example. And in B2B, like at B2C, I love using cars as a metaphor, because do you want to buy a Kia? Are you in the market for a Porsche? Are you in the market for a Lexus or a Ferrari? Same car, it's just a car. No, well, not the same car, it's a car, but they're different levels. And I bet when you look at the audience, it all comes down to the discretionary spending they can afford, which is based on the income.
Okay. Thanks, Martin. And with that, I just want to respect everyone's time. It is noon, and you guys you've been troopers. You've made it through a full 2 hours with some pretty detailed content.
I hope no one fell asleep.
Encourage you to check out the handouts. We have a follow-up session in 2 weeks to this date. As well, if we didn't get to your questions, I'll make sure we go through the chat and the questions after, and we'll see if we can just reach out to you directly and get you some answers. So thanks so much for your time. And Martin, thank you so much for your expertise. Like every single time I listen to you, I learn a new tidbit to take away. And half the time I was looking away and I was jotting down notes. So to the audience, thanks so much for the commitment. We'll see you again in a couple weeks. We'll be sharing the recording, the presentation, and the handouts over the next couple of days or so. So everybody, thanks so much for your time.
Thank you, guys. I'll see you in 2 weeks.